Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video I'm very excited for because honestly it's very needed. That's right, today I'm going to be doing a rather large book unhaul. Listen, I read a lot of books, I get a lot of books, but unfortunately for me at this point I only have so much bookshelf space. So once a quarter I try to go through my shelves and select books I know I'm either not going to reread, books I just thought were okay, books off my TBR I don't really think I'm going to get to anytime soon, or they've been there for years and years and years. That way I can clear up more space for other reads in the future. But before we go into the rather large book unhaul, first a word from this video's sponsor, which is Curology. I'm so excited to be partnering with my baes over at Curology because I truly love their products so much. They are products I use every single day. But if you're not familiar, Curology is a leader in made-for-you skincare, and everything is sent directly to your door, which I can truly not underline enough how convenient that is. Through Curology, you can shop a huge array of standard skincare products from moisturizer, cleanser, lip balm, makeup remover, pimple patches, but also through Curology, you're able to work directly with a skincare provider to get products that have active ingredients to target things like fine lines and wrinkles or acne. As I've said now many times, I have been using a retinoid-based product through Curology now for almost a year. I use this almost every single day, and I have seen such a transformation in the firmness in my skin, and I'm just loving the results of adding this into my skincare routine. It's also amazing because I'm able to work with my skincare provider if I need to tweak or alter my personalized prescription of this product, which I love, especially as I think about going into the fall winter season and how my skin changes with that season. To also mention some other Curology products I love dearly is first the cream moisturizer. I love this product. I use it so much. If you've seen any of my morning or evening vlogs, this product is frequently featured because it's just such a perfect moisturizer. It pairs so nicely in combination with other skincare items, and I love how hydrating it is without leaving my skin feeling oily. Another product I have to give a special shout out to is the Barrier Balm. I would be lost without it. I got a really bad case of contact dermatitis this past summer due to a laundry detergent I had never used before, and it actually spread to my face, and I use this so much. This is like a skin protectant that also hydrates, and I use that on those trouble areas I was having to hydrate and also just seal and protect the skin. It also helped it be so much less itchy. I also wear this regularly on my lips, especially if they're feeling extra dry. If you guys want to learn more about Curology, I will of course have a link down below to their site, as well as a link to my very special offer. Thank you again to Curology for sponsoring this video. I love their products so much, and it's truly such a joy to be able to work with them. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my very large book unhaul. Now this time around, I try to be a little hard on myself. I have duplicates I need to get rid of, whole series that I know I'm just not going to reread. But again, space is paramount in this house. Starting off my haul, I have the Sword of Kaigen by Emma Wong. I actually thought I already got rid of this edition, but I haven't. It's still sticking around on my shelf. Obviously, I love this book so much, and the reason why I'm getting rid of it is I actually have a very special edition of this book, which is one of my favorite fantasy standalones of all time, and if you haven't read it, you should definitely check it out. But I really have no space to have duplicates even of some of my favorite books. This is truly an incredible fantasy standalone centering elemental magic. We follow a variety of characters, one of which is a woman and her son and their very complex relationship. We also unpack this mom's history and past. I love all of the different things that Emma Wong was able to pack within this standalone novel. It was amazing. So again, I'm not getting rid of this because I have anything against it. I just can't have more than one copies of it, unfortunately. Another duplicate that I do need to get rid of is Rise of the School for Good and Evil by Soman Chanini. This is the prequel series to The School for Good and Evil, which is a middle grade series I have read the first few books in, and it's truly delightful, which is why I already own this book. It kind of plays with the concepts of the fairy tale concept of good and evil, and there's a school and you follow characters on each side, but then you begin to realize that being good or evil is a much more nuanced experience than what this school wants to make you believe. Again, this is kind of the founding tale of this school. I already have a copy. I do not need more than one. Next up are two books that have been on my TBR for too long and I have not read them, and this is the hardest section of my bookshelf to get rid of because I hate the idea of getting rid of something I might love that I haven't read. But I've had books on my shelf for 6-7 years I haven't picked up, and honestly they're just languishing away, so I'm gonna get rid of them, and for some reason I have a strong urge to read it. I can pick it up again you know, if that day comes. The first one is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. This is a YA fantasy novel that honestly sounds really delightful, which is why I've kept it around for so dang long, but yet I haven't read it. It has to do with like magic, and I believe our main character is like really good at making clothing, which just really calls out to me. Obviously, as you can tell, I don't want to get rid of this book. I wish I had unlimited space, but it's been on my shelf for so long. I need to have some rules in this house. Ugh, do I want to get rid of this? I don't know if I want to get rid of this. The next book that I'm going to unhaul is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is a fairy tale, mythology-based YA fantasy series. The blurbs on the back really call out to me, but I also feel like I've seen some mixed reviews about this one. Again, I'm trying to reduce my TBR of books that have just been sitting on my shelf for a long time, but also this just really feels like something I would love. It centers the sea god. I'm trying to be strong. The next three books are all part of the same series, a series I have read. The first one is Valor, then I have Ruin, and lastly, Wraith by John Gwen. These are all part of the Faithful and the Fallen series, books 2 through 3 to be exact, and I have decided to unhaul this. This might be a surprise. I read this recently last year, and basically my experience with this series was I liked the first book, I really loved the second book, I really enjoyed the third book, I did not like the fourth book. So it kind of left like a bad taste in my mouth by the time I finished it. This is like a massive multi-POV, war-centric, good versus evil sort of setup. It utilizes a lot of fun and very traditional fantasy tropes in its construction. John Gwen has a talent for combat writing, but by the end I found the story to have really dragged and a lot of conventional stuff was sort of happening and it almost felt like fan servicey. I know this is definitely an unpopular opinion and I get it. And because of that, because I just don't love this series immensely, I don't ever see myself rereading this, and I'd much rather pass it on to someone who's really excited to read it versus it just sitting on my shelf. That being said, I am going to keep the first one on my shelf for the sake of like videos, because I do make those. It's handy to have. And I do have like a John Gwen section, so like I love how these look. Like as a bookshelf trophy, I really didn't want to get rid of these, but at the same time, I don't love this series. Like, and the more it sits with me, like the less I like it, so I need to get rid of it. Another series I've decided to get rid of is the Walk on Earth a Stranger series by Ray Carson. The first one is Walk on Earth a Stranger. Second one is Like a River Glorious. And lastly, Into the Bright Unknown. I really like Ray Carson's writing, particularly in the YA fantasy space. And I think I've held onto these for so long because of how much I love her other trilogy. I read the first two books in this trilogy probably like 7 years ago now. And I liked them and I didn't love them at the time. And I've never really felt super inclined to finish the trilogy, and because of that, like these books are stunning, and I really do like Ray Carson's writing, but I think this particular series just wasn't my absolute favorite, so it feels sort of silly to hold on to it, even though like I love Ray Carson so much. This is like a historical fantasy series set during the gold mining era, so it has some really cool influences, and again, I'd rather than this just collecting dust on my bookshelf, it's able to find a new home where someone will love and appreciate it more than me. But dang, these books are beautiful. The next book I'm unhauling is The Heartless Hunter by Kristen Sorelli. I don't think this is a huge surprise. I read this a couple months ago and did not like it very much at all. This is like a YA fantasy novel, enemies to lovers, witch dates a witch hunter sort of situation set in kind of a Russian Revolution meets French Revolution landscape. It just sort of felt flimsy and typical. I read it quickly, so it did have that going for it, but by the end of it, I was like not super impressed, and I don't actually see myself continuing on with this, so again, I'd rather just pass it along. The next book is a book I started last winter, and I liked it, but it didn't really like pull me in. And given its length and just like how many literary fiction books I have on my TBR, I just feel like because it didn't capture my attention so fully, I don't really see it doing so again, and I'm not sure I'm going to circle back to it. That is The Whalebone Theater by Joanna Quinn, and this is a story that follows a group of kids who all play together in this like whalebone theater, like they call it that because they like play within the carcass of a whale, but World War II is sort of threatening the land and things sort of begin to transform. Again, I've just read a lot of World War II literary fiction books, and while I liked this book, it just didn't capture my attention in the way that I was anticipating. So again, trying to be hard on myself. Another book I will be getting rid of is Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. I read this recently for my IRL book club. Another book that I just didn't love. I liked it. It wasn't bad, but it's definitely not a book I'm going to reread. This is like a summer thriller-esque story following kind of a toxic friend group. It basically opens up on two girls, Joni and Bess, and when they were teenagers, they basically went to Greece with their other best friend to have like the summer of a lifetime, but unfortunately one of the girls actually passed away, putting the remaining two girls in kind of the middle of this media storm and speculation on like what happened. Fast forward 10 years later, Joni comes back into Bess's life like needing an alibi. I like the simmering tension. Again, I liked the exploration of female friendship within this. By the end, I honestly was a bit disappointed and I found the ending to just be a little lackluster. Writing style was good though, and I feel like if you like thrillers like this, I don't typically read a lot of thrillers, you would like it, but yeah. Read this for my book club. It was okay. Another book I already thought I got rid of, maybe accidentally hung around, is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the sequel to One Dark Window, another book that I've already unhauled. This is a really popular kind of romantasy fantasy series. I can see why it's popular. I feel like it's a good introductory place to start for a variety of readers. It's not to say that the series is bad, but it just didn't wow me as much as I was expecting, just given all the glowing reviews. I found the magic system to be interesting. It basically centers around this magical deck of cards. If you have one of these cards, you're able to harness its powers. There's lots of interesting character dynamics. There's romance, obviously, but I feel like there was too much in too little space and everything sort of felt rushed and surface for me. But I felt like it was promising. So I do think I'd read other stuff by this author, but it just didn't give me what I was hoping. Another book that left me disappointed, and I will be unhauling it, is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. I did not like this book at all. Like, at all. It also started out so strong. Like the first half of this book was like 5 out of 5 stars. Second half of this book, like 1 star. Like the fall off was crazy. Another romantasy fantasy book inspired by Norse mythology. We follow our main character. She lives in a world where if you have like even 1 drop of blood by the gods, you have some powers and abilities, and you're also become politically important. At the beginning of this book, she becomes kind of like a political pawn for a powerful earl in the area. She also begins this will they won't they with his son, which adds a very complicated layer of things. It was just so good and then so bad that I almost get mad looking at the cover of this book. So obviously I'm unhauling this. Another series I just don't really see myself continuing, if I'm being honest, especially when I think about all the fall vibey books on my TBR. The Practical Magic series. I really enjoyed Practical Magic, but I've heard that the rest of the books in the series were just not as good. Let me know if that perspective is wrong. So because of that, I just don't really see myself like moving forward in it. So I've just decided to get rid of the 2 books. One is Magic Lessons and the other is The Book of Magic. But let me know if I'm wrong, because I always love to be talked out of getting rid of books. But vibey, witch, family, legacy sort of situation. The movie, great. So I want to be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. A TBR book I'm a little guilty about getting rid of is The Star in the Strange Moon. Now, this is a book that Clay actually picked out for me. We do the sort of yearly surprise book hauls, and typically he's like 10 out of 10 every single time. Every book he picks out for me, I'm really curious and excited to read, but maybe not this one. Nobody tell him. Nobody send him this video. He probably doesn't even remember. But if I'm being honest, this particular book is just not really a book that I'm super excited to pick up. It's a horror novel in the 60s and the early 2000s following like a cursed film. I can see why he grabbed this for me, but if I'm being honest, it's kind of just been sitting at my shelf staring at me. Like I don't really see myself reading this. But again, I've kept it because Clay got it for me. But like also, if I'm being honest, Clay would love to have less books hanging around the house. So I feel like he wouldn't mind if I unhauled this, but he also doesn't need to know. Another TBR book I've just finally decided to let go, even though I feel like I would like this book, but like I've had this book on my shelf for, I don't even know, like 6-7 years, and I haven't picked it up yet, and that is The Kingdom of Beck by Marie Lu. This is like a fantasy Mozart story centering music and family, and it's like so much about this I feel like I would love, and yet and yet I haven't picked it up. It's been so many years. And I said last year, if I haven't read this book yet, like I have to get rid of it. I really like this author's writing. I love that it centers the sister of Mozart. Goodness me. 7 years on my TBR though. Another book I've had on my TBR since I was in college. Like I had this book in my college apartment. I've dragged this book to Chicago. I've dragged this book to New York City. I have not read it. And to be honest, the reviews for this book are like not very good. And honestly, I've kept this book for so long because the cover is really pretty. Like I love the cover, I love the spine, and I love the idea of this book. But I feel like I'm never gonna read it because the reviews are like quite bad. And I feel like I probably won't like it. So I was like, well, if I never read it, then I never have to unhaul it for not liking it because it's so pretty. Book is The Queen of the Night. I mean, look at this cover. It's so good. And the spine is amazing. Apparently this is like a twisty thriller set in the Paris Opera. I mean, has anyone read this? Well, I like it. This is why I have the problems I have. I'm constantly looking for reasons to not get rid of stuff, but like, doesn't this look so cool? Another book off the old TBR I'm just gonna get rid of. This was a book that I was really excited to pick up earlier this year, but basically every single one of my favorite reviewers who has read this did not like it, which is so disappointing because I had such high expectations going into this book. Given my sort of risky experience with Romantasy lately and just given the reviews I've seen around this, I just feel like it might be best for me to just pass it on. And that is Feybound, Sapphic, Fairy, Romantasy, Dark Forest. I love all those inputs, but unfortunately just have not seen very good things about this. Some more duplicates I'm going to be passing along is Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. I love this book so much. Obviously, I'm not getting rid of this book because I did not like it. I have the new edition of this cover, though I do like how the spines of the old editions make like spaceship situation, but I do love the primary colors of the new ones and how they match the new books Ann Leckie is putting out. And as a Ann Leckie stan, I kind of want consistency across all of the releases. This is the first book to a space opera series. If you haven't read it, you really, really should. We follow our main character Breck and we find her on a very desolate, icy planet and she is seeking revenge. Breck was once known as the Justice of Torin, and she basically existed as the consciousness and AI of like this massive spaceship. She also existed through things called ancillaries, and these were 20 different bodies all connected again via the same consciousness. So she was used to living through many different perspectives at once, but something happened, we don't know what, and now Breck finds herself as a singular individual. Again, she wants revenge. We go forward and back in time. It's such a good sci-fi book. Loved it. Similarly, I don't know how this book snuck around on my shelf for so long, but I have The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden, which is book 2 to the Bear and the Nightingale series, which is one of my favorite series of all time. But I have another edition of this. I have the UK edition, and honestly, I just think it's prettier. I love, you know, the art style of this. So because of that, I am going to pass along the American version of this series, though I really cannot emphasize, if you have not read it, read this. This is a historical fantasy series set in like the 15th century in Russia. We follow our main character Vasya and we watch her grow up and come into her power. This series is full of fae and magic and family, trying to save your family. It also has incredible historical influence in terms of the plot and character interactions. It's amazing. One of my favorite series of all time. I could not recommend this more, but again, can't have 2 copies. Another book I have decided to pass along is The Serpents and the Wing of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I like this book. This is a romantasy book that centers like vampires in a high fantasy setting, a competition, lots of will they won't they between our 2 main characters. In terms of romantasy, this was actually a romantasy book that I did enjoy. I found the balance between fantasy and romance to be quite entertaining, but if I'm being honest with myself, like I don't need a physical copy of this book, and I'm sure there are people out there that would love to have a physical copy of this book, as I think this is kind of hard to come across, if I'm being honest. I might be wrong about that. If I want to read or continue this series, I'll read it via ebook. Similarly, I've decided to pass along The Stardust Grail by Yumi Kitasai. This book just came out. I really like Yumi Kitasai's writing. I read The Deep Sky by this author earlier this year, which I loved, loved, loved. This is her newer release, which is kind of like Indiana Jones in space. I think overall, it's just kind of an experience I found to be okay. I will read more books by this author in the future, but this one just didn't perfectly land for me. But I feel like other people should read and enjoy it. So I just don't think I should keep shelf space for this because I don't see myself rereading it. We are in the home stretch. I only have a few books left to show off. Hopefully you'll be impressed with me because I was hard on myself this time around. I have Demons of Good and Evil by Kim Harrison. This was sent to me in PR, and while I love an urban fantasy series, I actually think this book is like very far along in this urban fantasy series, and I haven't read or own any of the other installments within this. So I just don't really think it makes sense for me to have this on my shelf. Though I'm curious about this. But no. I can't keep like book 12 possibly of an urban fantasy series. I haven't even started. And the last book I've decided to unhaul is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a book that I honestly enjoyed. I listened to the audiobook when it came out quite a few years ago now, but again, I'm trying to make space on my shelf for other books, and I'm just like overflowing with literary fiction right now. So I decided to kind of pull a literary fiction book that I've read that, again, I just don't see myself going back to, or I don't really find myself like overly recommending this book on my channel very much. So I've decided to just pass it on, as I know this author is really popular, and someone else might enjoy the read of this. You know what I mean? Alrighty guys, that is my very, very large book unhaul. Just trying to get my life together a little bit. Thank you again to this video sponsor, which is Curology. And I will of course have a link down below to my special offer. Thank you again for watching this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.